Hey, what's up? Chris Seiter here. Today we're going to be talking about why you'll fail to get your ex back unless you ignore them. Now, before we get started talking about that, the first thing I would do if you're new to this process or you simply are confused if you even have a chance of getting your ex back is to actually stop by our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com. There's a quiz there that you can take that will actually tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. The whole thing should take you no more than 2 minutes. So if you want to take that quiz, all you have to do is simply look in the description link below this video. Basically, click on the link there. There should be a link. It's blue. There should be some words surrounding it saying, take the 2-minute free quiz. Click on that. It will take you to a page that asks you questions. Answer those questions to the best of your ability. And then we're going to run your answers through an advanced algorithm that will actually give you an idea if you have a chance of getting your ex back. So again, if you want to take the quiz, look in the description below, and I'll see you next time.
So today we're going to be talking about why you'll probably fail to get your ex back unless you ignore them. There's been a lot of debate about what you should do to get your ex back, and consistently you'll find that me and a lot of my peers out there will recommend something like the no contact rule, a vehicle that will help you ignore your ex. Right now, some people say that this is manipulation. Some people say that it's not good, that you shouldn't ever try to do that, and some people swear by it. They think it's the greatest thing ever. So I thought it would be kind of cool to put something together to actually answer the questions for you. Figure out what works and what doesn't work. If it's a good idea to ignore your ex. And as I think you'll see here as I make my case time and time again, it's a good idea assuming certain things happen first. So this video is really going to be talking about 3 main concepts. Number 1, we're going to be talking about ignoring your ex in the proper context and why that's an important idea for you to accomplish. Number 2, we're going to be talking about the 2 primary reasons for why it's important to ignore exes, the 2 huge benefits that you get. And finally, the last thing we're going to be talking about is what your ex feels when you ignore them and how that plays into the overall strategy of getting your ex back. Now, I want to first start off by a quote by a very well-known PhD who has gone on record to talk about the silent treatment and basically says that the silent treatment is tremendously damaging to a relationship. It decreases relationship satisfaction for both partners, diminishes feelings of intimacy, and reduces the capacity to communicate in a way that's healthy and meaningful. So when you read that quote or you hear that quote, you're thinking you should never ignore your ex. Relationships are often defined by communication. Typically speaking, the better the communication is between the 2 individuals, the better the relationship will be, or the more open or more trust will be built. The silent treatment or ignoring or the no contact rule, according to this quote, according to a very well-known PhD, is a mistake. It's damaging to a relationship. Now, I would say that I would agree with this statement. It is damaging, but this statement isn't made from the context of a breakup, which a lot of you guys are going through. This statement is made from a context of a relationship, of making relationships thrive. There's already agreement between 2 individuals to commit themselves to each other, right? So where does the no contact rule come into play, and why would I recommend it if this alarming quote basically proves that the silent treatment is a bad idea? Well, that's where there's 2 things that I think you really need to consider here with the no contact rule. The first thing is understanding where it falls into the overall strategy. As you can see here, this is kind of the ultimate get your ex back strategy that we teach throughout our website and even through many of our products and our coaching sessions, right? So it's what I call the value chain. It's basically step by step as you move up the ladder towards ultimately success, you're providing a little bit more value as you go along, right? So the first step is always the no contact rule, right? That is where you ignore your ex for a period of time. That's the ignoring aspect. Now, the quote that I just played for you or showed you a second ago was under the context of you're ignoring your ex and that's it, or you're ignoring that person and that's it. That's the only strategy that you're going to try to attempt. You're going to ignore your ex or ignore this person that you're with to try to get them to act in a certain way. I recognize that doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can't expect just to simply do a no contact rule by itself and expect it to work. That's why it's important to position it properly. Ignoring your ex works if it's positioned properly, if you do it in the proper context, if you will. That's why it is the very first thing that we do, and also why I reiterate time and time again that you can't just expect the no contact rule to do all of the work for you and make, all of a sudden him or her, don't just come back and jump in back into your life. It doesn't work that way. More often what happens is you do a no contact rule. If you do it properly, you've done maybe half the work that's required. There's still the other half, the harder half. That is what is pictured here. Texting, phone calls, talking in person, being a little bit more romantic, building up that value until eventually you become successful, right? So remember, ignoring your ex only works if it's put into the proper context. You can't simply just ignore your ex for the entire period of time that you're trying to get them back. It doesn't work. Now, the other thing I'd like to talk to you about today is a little bit of a story, right? So this story is going to be kind of an interesting one. It's something that I read today that really made me think about the no contact rule and why it works and why it's important to really grasp. And this is a story about a woman. Now, a woman has a bit of a weird pet peeve. She hates it when her husband would enter into a room, turn the light on, and then leave the room, right? So what would end up happening is that her husband would enter a room, turn the light on, leave the room, enter another room, turn that light on, leave that room, enter another room, turn that light on, and pretty soon you could see the exact path he's taking throughout the house just based on the lights that are on, right? It's a weird pet peeve to have, but it's enough of an annoyance that she got tired of nagging him about turning the lights off because maybe he would do it one time, but ultimately the behavior kept persisting. So she decided what she was going to do was use the silent treatment. She was going to stop nagging him completely. She was going to stop cleaning up after him so that he'd go from room to room to room to room and understand or see physically how much clutter and mess is there. At 4 a.m. or something, the lights would still be on. He would see that and recognize that's not a proper way to live. So she did it. The results didn't go like she was hoping. He continued the behavior. He went from room to room, kept the light on, and after weeks, there's dust balls forming in the corners, right? He hasn't done anything to persist, and she broke down and cleaned up and turned the lights off. She couldn't handle it anymore. She went to I think it was a psychologist, and asked him, hey, I tried this test out. Why didn't it work? And the psychologist actually said, well, that version of the silent treatment, this adult version that you're trying, is actually very effective. It can work. But you didn't give him any kind of indication of why you were doing it. Now, I found that interesting because oftentimes when I'm recommending the no contact rule to people, I tell them to go cold turkey. I tell them to simply don't give your ex any kind of explanation of why you're ignoring them all of a sudden. And I find that that actually works better. Ignoring your ex without any kind of explanation works better for whatever reason. And I read this research and it contradicts what I've found. But the more I thought about it, and I actually asked my wife, I was driving in the car today and I asked her about this. I said, why do you think this is? She brought up a really interesting point. She said, because the reason for ignoring your ex via the no contact rule, the pretenses in which you're ignoring them is already in place. It's already there. You've gone through a breakup. It makes sense logically to your ex why you're ignoring them. Therefore, this version of the silent treatment makes sense and can be effective because they understand I'm going to lose this person. This person is ignoring me because of the breakup. Whereas in the example I just gave you, the light example going from room to room to room to room, it's not effective because she just stopped nagging him but didn't give him any kind of reason for why. But your reason is already built in. So the two reasons that ignoring your ex can work, the two primary functions or two primary reasons is, number one, the position needs to be proper. You can't just ignore your ex and expect that to do all of the work for you. And number two, the pretense is already there. By ignoring your ex, he understands or she understands why you're doing it. You don't have to explain why you're doing it because they understand you're doing this because we went through a breakup and things are different. Now, there's also another thing that I'd like to cover with you today, and that's some of the unseen benefits of the no contact rule, or the unseen benefits of ignoring your ex. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video where I was talking about why your ex can come back after a no contact rule. And I'm really proud of that video. I even wrote an article about it. And I'm really proud of that video because I talked about things in the video that I had never talked about before. Things that I don't see any of my peers talking about, and things that I don't think anyone's even connected to the no contact rule. You know, without a doubt, the no contact rule, or ignoring your ex for this certain period of time, is the most effective strategy that we have when it comes to getting an ex back. So understanding everything that we possibly can about it is essential, right? Understanding the ins and the outs, why this works, why this doesn't work. It fascinates me. I know I've done a study where around 70% of my success stories on my website have used a no contact rule throughout their process. Now, it wasn't the only strategy that helped get them their ex back, but it was a strategy that they used. And then when you actually distill it down to our coaching clients and the people in our private Facebook group, 100% of the success stories we've had there have utilized the no contact rule. It's an important thing to understand. And so when you actually start peeling back the layers and understanding why it works, you understand all of these amazing benefits that go along with actually implementing it. And the three main benefits I think that you get from the no contact rule really revolve around the idea of reactance, information gap theory, and the Zeigarnik effect. Or the Zeigarnik effect, or Zeigarnik effect. I always butcher that pronunciation, but whatever. It's an effective strategy. So these benefits make a lot of sense when they're done in the proper context. So reactance, what is that? How does ignoring your ex tap into reactance? Well, reactance states that we each have our own behavioral freedoms. We're born with these behavioral freedoms. And when those behavioral freedoms are threatened, we respond in a way to try to get that freedom back. We will almost sometimes start wars over it, attack for it. And in this case, when you do a no contact rule, when you ignore your ex, you're tapping into your ex's behavioral freedom to talk to you. You're removing that from the equation. So they're going to do everything they can to get your attention. They will reach out to you. Sometimes they'll reach out to your friends, family, sometimes show up at work, show up at your doorstep. They'll do all sorts of crazy things to get your attention because they can't stand that behavioral freedom being gone. It's like losing something. So that's one cool benefit. It's an unseen benefit of the no contact rule. And then, of course, you have the information gap theory. So information gap theory is all about curiosity. That's really the thing that I want you to take home with the information gap theory. So what do we mean by curiosity? Well, it's quite simple, really. When there's a gap in information, become curious to fill that gap in, right? So if you all of a sudden cold turkey, which we've talked about before, jump into the no contact rule, and your ex has no idea why, they become curious and want to figure it out. That can lead to them almost chasing you. And also, if you take that same line of thinking, that gap, that also plays into the Zeigarnik effect. Now, what is that? Well, people remember interrupted or uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. Therefore, if you go cold turkey into the no contact rule, it's like interrupting, especially if you're in the pattern of talking to each other like constantly every day, and all of a sudden you just stop and go into the no contact rule. They're going to want to figure out why that happened. It's going to wedge into their mind because they're going to remember it better and better. And the example I give is actually going to your front door, opening the front door, and coming back and listening to this YouTube video. It just nags at you, right? Because it's an uncompleted task. So by ignoring your ex, you get all these amazing benefits, these unseen benefits no one really talks about. And a lot of times, there's this internal battle and struggle with my clients between if they should ignore their ex or if they should try to communicate. Everything teaches you that communication is the way to go. And scientifically it is, except in this case, where it's been proven, at least ignoring your ex has been proven to work extremely well. But only if the proper context is taken. Only if you understand that you're only ignoring your ex for a short period of time. So, that's going to do it for this video. I had a blast. I will see you guys tomorrow for the next daily video in the batch. Take care.